Welcome to the lighter side of the spectrum, the podcast that celebrates the multiple hats we wear and the juggling acts we perform in life. Whether you're parenting kids and teens on the autism spectrum, navigating the ever-evolving healthcare industry, or building a more inclusive and impactful world, this is your space to find connection, inspiration, and growth. Together, we'll share stories, tackle challenges, and explore how innovation and inclusion create better outcomes for everyone. Because no matter the spectrum, there's always a lighter side. Now here's your host, David Coffer.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the lighter side of the spectrum. Today's guest is Kelley Colihan Robertson, a longtime journalist, documentary producer, autism mom, and communication rights advocate. Now, Kelley spent nearly 3 decades in journalism, including 20 years at CNN, where her work contributed to 3 Peabody Award-winning news events: the Arab Spring, the Gulf oil spill, and Hurricane Katrina. She also won 2 National Headliner Awards for writing and co-producing CNN documentaries with Dr. Sanjay Gupta, including The Killer Flu and The First Patient. After retiring from journalism, Kelley helped co-found the Connection School of Atlanta, the first high school in Metro Atlanta to implement text-based typing for non-speaking and unreliable speaking students. Very cool. She also led a neurodiverse family retreat in Costa Rica that was later mentioned in Condé Nast Traveler. But what makes Kelley such an important voice for this conversation is not only her resume, it's the way Kelley brings a journalist's eye, a mother's heart, and a deep respect for autistic people into one of the most polarized spaces in disability advocacy. We're going to be talking about media narratives, non-speaking communication, apraxia, autism catatonia, skepticism, all kinds of stuff, polarization, what happens when families start listening differently. So with all that, Kelley, thank you again for joining us. I'm so excited to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Wow,
I think that was a lot too. Woo.
I was just gonna say, you need, I don't think you're busy enough. I don't think you've done enough. Come on.
I'm retired though from news. So really my main thing now is actually my main job is caretaker. That's really what I do and have been doing. I'm a caretaker and a writer. So that's I've taken it way down.
That's interesting because, I think it's similar to myself in that, the first job is caretaker, right? And / communication partner / I joke teacher's aide in my case because I go with my son to his school and all that. But let's talk about you. So let's get some of the background story. Tell us a little bit about your family and kind of let's talk about first kind of what brought you into the world of autism. And then I want to get into your journalism background, because I think that's so important, as we had talked about leading up to this podcast, that perspective that you bring, and I do too, from kind of different vantage points, but kind of seeing what's going on. But let's talk about the autism journey first, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, for sure. Our son is 24 now, and he has been spelling using text-based communication for, 9 years.
Oh, great.
Yeah, for 9 years. We first were exposed to it. We live in the Atlanta area, and when Elizabeth Vossler brought a Spelling to Communicate conference here, way back in the day. And he's also done some sessions with Soma, founder of our program, and with the Spellers method as well. So I've been in the autism world since for 24 years, and it's changed so much since the early days. I've learned so much, and my son has taught me so much. That's really been the greatest gift. He's taught me so much about life and about slowing down and enjoying the moment, and just really remarkable.
Yeah, such a different perspective, and I'm sure for you even more so in some ways, kind of coming from the world of CNN and this, and news in general. Journalism's a very fast-paced industry, right? Like it's, you got to be the first to the story. It's a very competitive, very intense. It's a very important profession. I want to add too, it's one that I have a lot of respect for, and I think it's important in democracy and also in our world too. But to go from that, like you said, and then kind of like you said, the world of autism. So when was he diagnosed? Talk about that a little bit in terms of what were the early days like for you?
Early days, woo. The early days,
Yeah, that says it all.
doesn't it seem like? But he was diagnosed relatively late, I have to say. So he was 5 when he was diagnosed.
Okay.
But I knew at age 1, um, my ex-husband and I, Vance's dad, we lived in New York City after 9/11. And Vance was born in Atlanta. We moved to New York for his dad's job. And at Vance's 1 year checkup with the
Hmm.
pediatrician, I was telling the pediatrician, he doesn't point. And the other kids had started to say things, and he didn't. And he was delightful. And he made eye contact. He laughed a lot. He played with the water. So he was very engaging. He wasn't completely remote. He connected, of course, in many ways, but the voice, the language wasn't coming. The words
Yeah,
weren't
right.
coming. And he would do things like look at a toy or the wheels on a car and just stare at it.
Right.
Do a
Yeah.
lot. And so I mentioned that to the pediatrician. That was the first time I heard the old boys are late talkers.
Uh-huh.
And
Right.
it was
Yeah.
a,
Don't worry. Basically, don't worry about it. Right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's the first time I heard, oh, Einstein didn't talk until he was 5. And
Mm.
but yet it was very noticeable with the different, the little mommy baby groups that we hung out with.
Yeah.
So, I knew there was something there, but that was also the time when we weren't really diagnosing. I think it wasn't until 2004 that the American Academy of Pediatricians started to recommend diagnosing or screening for autism
Oh,
by
okay.
age. I think it was by age 4, screening for autism, and looking for things like distal pointing. And so, yeah, so a fairly late diagnosis. We moved back to Atlanta. Um, I started getting advanced speech therapy and
Hmm.
occupational therapy to
Right.
get qualified. The first thing we did was, and those parents who are going through this now, was check his hearing and make
Right.
sure that, we
Yep.
had the hearing test, make sure he could hear okay. And he could, although he really couldn't tell us what.
Right. Yeah. This brings back so many memories. Yep.
Right. We all have
Yeah.
this similar, I mean, that's what the wonderful thing too about the community is we really have very similar stories.
Yeah.
And my son is an unreliable speaker. So
Okay.
he does
Yeah.
have he classifies himself as an unreliable speaker. Uh,
Okay.
he does have some words, but in the early days it was lots of echolalia. And most of your listeners know what that is, but it's repeating. Like
Yeah.
often we'd say something and he would repeat the
You
last.
repeat the last part back to you. Right.
Or of
Yeah.
course, the old repeating something from Thomas the Tank Engine,
Yep.
or Sesame Street.
In
So
our case, little Einsteins, Kelly. So
oh, we went down on little Einsteins.
okay. Yeah, that would have been just a little later. That could really, yeah, that would have been just a little later for
How
you.
old is Stone?
He's 20, so just a
Ah,
few years. But but Thomas was a big hit, of course,
yeah.
and Dora, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Very appealing. So yeah, so my son went to a regular school, and yeah,
Oh,
he went to a regular school in the very beginning. He was in a when we moved back to Atlanta when he was 3. He went to a mother's morning day out program for a couple hours a day. And one of the teachers pulled me aside after a few months and said, you really need to he needs to go to a different school. Um, because the kids, they were painting, with paintbrushes, and he wasn't doing any of that. And
hmm,
that was kind of like the first time I knew I had already known that he had something was different.
yeah.
But that person very kindly pulled me aside and said, here's another school that you might want to look at.
Oh, okay. So she
And
provided. It wasn't just like, we don't want him here. It's more like
right,
this. This
right,
is
right.
well, which happens, unfortunately.
No, it
It was
has
it was
happened.
yeah, right. It was more like I think he would be better served in a better
Yes,
in a
he
different
was
school.
very gentle, and that was
Oh, nice.
special needs preschool. So yeah.
Okay. So he went, so he did public education in Atlanta, and was it a special ed classroom? Was he included in general
Oh,
ed? How did that go? I mean, I know it's a lot.
that was a bit of a nightmare. We started in public school after we did a couple of years of this special needs preschool. And and I think it was second grade is when really things just fell apart.
Mm,
Um, he was really starting to not want to go to school, which was highly unusual for him.
yeah.
He's a very social person, but I started to see signs of distress. And I was working, that's when I was working for Dr. Gupta. So, I was trying to like get my stuff done at work. Occasionally I would do not much, but a little bit of travel. And he would stay with his dad. At that point, his dad and I had divorced.
Okay.
So that was also part of, I believe, the difficulties when one
Sure.
parent feels, that he needs help. I got the speech therapy and the occupational therapy, and his dad was like, he's fine. He knows his ABCs.
Oh,
Um,
wow. So yeah,
so we had that going on for a little bit. Um,
and I'm just curious, Kelly. So was that before or after the divorce? I mean, or both? Like having the difference of opinion in terms of seeing how,
well, there's a lot to unpack there.
I know, but I'm just kidding. But because
Yeah.
my point being, I think that's really common. I think it's,
Yes. Yes.
and again, I think it's a topic that isn't talked about a lot because, again, obviously it is personal and it gets into different dynamics, but it does have an impact on things. I can't tell you. And again, in my case, my wife now admits it that she was in denial for years. And, early on with the diagnosis, I was the one who was kind of like, driving the train, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Like, we got to do this, we got to do the. I'm guessing you were probably the same, up at night on the internet,
Yeah.
researching, looking for Yahoo groups back in the day or whatever. And it's interesting that like, how common that is
Yes.
in our community. And I guess maybe that's just the case for parenting in general. Like I said, I don't want to say it's probably just specialized to autism parents, but it does complicate things. It definitely can add stress to the relationship,
Oh,
without a
for
doubt.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure it did. And, I was actually very grateful. So we divorced when Vance was 2. And
Okay.
then we lived in the same area. So we would, help each other out and that
Yeah.
type of thing. But I was really grateful when my ex-husband got remarried because his wife did an intervention and really to help him see this is the reality is this,
Oh, good for her.
and just wonderful. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's a
and then
good.
he's fully on board.
Yeah,
He fully got on board, but
you
it
got it.
was it was
It
for
took
sure
time.
denied.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to sidetrack. So,
Yeah.
so again, so you're working professional, again, working as a journalist, and I want listeners to kind of get an idea of because I don't think again people really understand. There's, especially now, I feel like that there's become this stereotype of journalists or broadcast journalists, right? That they're just talking heads, they don't realize, news readers or can you talk about kind of like, as much as you can? I know it's a broad topic, but what like a day in the life as a journalist was like for you in terms of, getting a story, getting assigned a story or come up with a story and then the research and like the work that goes into it. Because like I said, I don't think people have a full appreciation for that.
Yeah. Well, and also journalism has changed a lot.
Yes.
Of course, it's
Yes.
just, and it's always
And
rapidly
I
changing.
want to talk about that too. Yeah.
So rapidly changing, but back in the day, so I spent 20 years at CNN. I left, to move to New York, but then came back, and so a total of 20 years at CNN. When I first started, Ted Turner was still at the helm.
Mm.
So it was great. You'd see him wandering around every now and then in the elevator and,
I mean,
just being
what a
wonderful.
pioneer and visionary.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
he was
absolutely.
like our wacky dad. He really was like that, but we were drawn to that because of his innovation and that sense
Yeah,
of democracy and caring for the planet. And that
yeah.
permeated CNN. It truly did back in those days. And then, of course, when AOL, the merger, things got wonky, and then
Oh my
Ted
God,
said
the
he
AOL. Yeah.
basically, yeah, he said he basically got fired. That was what he said from his job. But for me, I worked in so many. I started there. I came from NPR in Washington. I grew
Oh,
up in the
cool.
Washington, D.C. area.
Okay.
So I was working at NPR, and my background was more in radio.
Mm.
So, like, my first job was in radio. And just thinking of this podcast, I was thinking, okay, I started thinking of my past. I hadn't really thought about it for a while. And I covered, this is how old I am. I shouldn't be telling you guys this, but I covered at the University of Maryland radio station when I was in college. I covered Ronald Reagan's reelection,
Oh, wow.
1984. I just
Yeah.
remember being at I think I was at I don't remember, don't quote me, but the Washington Sheraton, and seeing the big map on the wall turning red, 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 red. Um, I had no idea what I was doing, by the way.
Well,
Um,
I mean, how old were you at the time? Like
I was
21?
12. No,
Yeah, right. Yeah, you were the prodigy. You were the journalist
no,
prodigy.
I don't know. Actually, I was maybe 19 or
Yeah,
something.
whatever. I mean, you were in college. I mean, you
Right?
were a
But
college student. I mean,
I had no
you
idea
thought
what I
you
was
knew a
doing.
lot more than you did, of course, but
Ugh. But so I came from NPR and got a job at CNN. It was so exciting, being in a different city.
huge. Yeah.
Atlanta, but at CNN I did many different jobs. So I started as a news writer at CNN Domestic. And the day in the life you'd get up depending on your shift. I think I started on the 3:30 a.m. shift.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'd get to work at 3:30 and we would have a meeting. You would read in, everybody would read in. You would read the Wire reports, AP, Reuters. I always
Okay.
enjoyed international news, so I'd always volunteer to write the international stories, but I'd read the BBC, and so you'd get up to speed on what's going on, and then the executive producer would call a meeting. We would all get together. The executive producers and the producers put together the rundown. So they tell us the rundown. If I was working in the 3:30 a.m. shift, I may be doing the 7 or 8 a.m. Broadcast. So they'd have a rundown that listed what are we leading with today. And it was wonderful because you would get in the morning, you would have your little Dunkin' Donuts. I actually, at that time, Dunkin' wasn't open yet, so I had Starbucks because I'd bring it from home, this big thing of coffee, and start talking about what's going on. What are we going to lead with? And it was great because it really was this intellectual, you could disagree, argue, or say, what about this? Or what about this story? Or have you
Right.
heard this? And then basically things would get the writers, maybe for a 1 hour broadcast, there might be a team of four, maybe 4 or 5 writers. And certain writers, it was very political, as you would guess. Um, you
Oh,
know,
sure, of course. I
there was
mean,
always like the big political writer. That wasn't me. It was always like,
yeah.
but I would love to do any international slant. And you'd basically the stories would get parceled out. And then you'd write, boop, 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 boop. And then the show would go on the air. It would go to copy edit. You might have to change stuff. Things are always last minute breaking, always, or changing, I should say.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, you would, if you had the great luxury in the early days, we would have the great luxury of sitting back and watching the show and watch the anchor read what you wrote. And it was
That
really satisfying,
I was gonna say that must have been so satisfying, and it just must just
Yeah.
be so rewarding to see your work go into that. I mean, providing information to the audience that was tuning in, the people. This is why people watched CNN and or tuned into NPR and a lot of the major news outlets for all of the backlash some give them. I miss that day, Kelley, kind of where as you're describing it, I'm thinking about here's one of the major differences between kind of like then and now is you guys are basically curating the news for your audience. You were trained, but you're trained journalists, like again, a group of trained journalists to understand what's legit, what isn't, prioritize. Now, again, like you said, it's political. And of course, so there's the curation, there's a filtering that goes in, but there's also kind of like a professional ranking system that was provided. It's kind of the same thing as same reason I miss, getting three newspapers, as I used to get, right? Like, because you had professionals who filtered it and positioned like this is what's important, right? Now, like I said, the downside from my standpoint is that there was an obvious limitation to that, right? You were limited to what you could consume there, which has changed. But now there's like no filter. I
Yeah.
think, right? And it's all of to me, it feels like it's been replaced so much by clickbait and
Yes.
and rage bait and there's just seems to have been again the days of journalism really hard think like this is an important story, let's look at it. Now we're seeing that I mean there's still it hasn't totally disappeared of course, but it's just I think it's shrunk in terms of its importance and its visibility in daily lives. I don't know, I'd love to get your thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I watched CNN change in the 20 years that I was there.
Mm,
And I was getting, dismayed toward my final days there, just because I would see that we weren't, of course, we're doing more with less, which is,
mm,
of course, the story of corporate America.
yep,
Doing more with less, doing more with less. CNN always, though, did things on a shoestring budget. That was kind of scrappy. CNN was known as like, we weren't like the big, fat, wealthy networks who had junkets. We were kind of lean and mean.
yeah,
And in
yeah.
the early days, the news was the star. It wasn't a person.
That was the product. I mean, that
Yeah,
was what the startup was
yeah.
based on, right? Was
Right. It wasn't like a certain cult of celebrity, but of course you couldn't, those folks were there. But you couldn't really get away from that. But what I saw is basically doing more with less and then fewer in-depth reporting and things called packages. That was a news story. You would go out, report, bring it back, and it was heavily, I mean, we had a whole standards
standards,
and ethics committee that would
right?
run everything through standards and ethics. We had a group called the Row, which I did some freelancing for. I didn't work there full time, but I would freelance occasionally on the Row in my later years, and those were like the elite copy editors. So everything would go through the Row, and if there was any disagreement or no, this is not right, this is not factual, it wouldn't fly. That wouldn't get on the air. The CNN still does have the Row, and a lot of my friends
Okay.
still work there, so it is not. But a lot of I can't speak for other organizations that got rid of copy editing,
Hmm.
but that I did see that change throughout the years. Just the nature of the news, more talking heads, more pundits, for at least for television. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, especially on television. You're right.
it's just more of I'd rather see a reporter out in the field get the story. I'd rather hear some boots on the ground reporting. But that's expensive too. Sending out a team, producers, field
Right.
producers, that type of thing. So that was more expensive. They eliminated at one point during a merger. Let's see, was that 2002? Or 2004? They eliminated the environmental unit. So no more environmental news. That was, one unit, just if that was again a Ted Turner thing. Um, so you
Wow.
didn't have those type of stories. And then in later years, often you were so busy just flying, doing the next thing that you didn't have the luxury to sit back and watch your work. It was kind of like, okay, move on to the next thing. So the pace definitely picked up as well in terms of, just
Wow.
so
I
yeah.
mean, it was already probably pretty, frantic, and kind of went from that to kind
Well, I do think that broadcast feeds on that sense of frantic and adrenaline,
yeah, for
and
sure.
it, and that really didn't suit me. I mean, that whole there's often at the before a show would go on the air, a producer executive would come in and change things. And I remember thinking, why did they have to change that? Not because of the news, just because of whatever. But it provided that sense of adrenaline
Yeah.
as you get on the air, and yeah, it can
I
be exhausting. Yeah.
Well, I think back, I need to watch it again, but right, Broadcast News. I mean, the movie
Oh,
was
right.
so well
Running with the
done.
tape with the VHS
Exactly.
tape.
Yeah. Yeah. Holly running with the tape, like,
Yeah,
yeah,
we
your adrenaline's pumping just watching that, let alone thinking about being in that industry. So let's bring it back to again. So you're in this world, and then you're also trying to deal with autism, trying to, navigate schools and with your son, and he was an unreliable speaker. What did you see? I mean, in terms of coverage of autism, how did that frame your thinking, and how have you seen that change, Kelley, over the years now?
Well, back then, I never even heard the word unreliable speaker.
No,
I didn't
right.
know what that, which is why I think in part, we didn't get a formal diagnosis until Vance was 5,
Yeah.
which is very late. But I was doing getting the therapies for him when he was 3,
Yeah.
but just didn't have the label. And honestly, it didn't bother me. I saw who he was. I didn't really need a label.
Yeah.
Like, okay, he needs extra supports, he needs this, he needs that. Um, and so, yeah, we didn't see the coverage that we saw was very little. I do remember watching Soma, the founder of RPM, on 60 Minutes, and watching
Hmm.
her talk about this thing she was doing with severely autistic individuals. And, she didn't really focus in that piece, if you go back and watch it, wasn't completely focused on the letterboard. It was other things as well, which Soma will tell you as well. RPM is a teaching method,
Yeah.
not
Right.
just letterboard spelling. So, but I remember watching that and thinking, oh, that wouldn't work for my son because he speaks. The unreliable speaker piece took me years to understand. Years. And I thought what I saw on the outside was what was on the inside with my son.
Why would you not? Like, I mean, of
Yes,
course. I
yes,
mean, you had no reason not to think
yeah.
that.
And
You
so I
had,
didn't see a lot of coverage. We didn't do a lot. Um, I think there was I think around 2006, we did a big, CNN did a big the autism coverage thing. And but again, I remember thinking, oh, but these are for really severe people who don't speak
right.
at all, which I classified my son in a different category, but not even knowing really what was inside of him, and thinking that, his repeated words were his authentic self, which couldn't be further from the truth, as
Right.
as we discovered many years
Yeah.
later. Yeah.
So how did you discover, was it spelling the community? Well, you said Elizabeth came through. What, came through Atlanta?
Well,
Tell-
and the reason, I have a book. I've written the first draft, so it hasn't been sold,
Yes.
but I
Yes. I
have
want to ask you about that. Yeah.
okay. I have
That's
the
how
book
that's how we
proposal.
connected, of course, is because
Yes,
you reached out.
using a quote from you and
Yeah.
Stone. And the book was really, I didn't want to write a book. I didn't set out to write a book. I'm kind of a shy person, so I wasn't like, oh yeah, I want to write a book and go talk about it. But the really just it took me so long to understand the issues around unreliable speaking. that I thought, and no one told me, not that it was anyone's, job to tell
Right.
me. But back in the early days in Atlanta, there were only a few people doing spelling to communicate. And most of those parents were, let's see, there was a small handful. Elizabeth Vossler came to Atlanta, and the first time I saw a spelling to communicate, Elizabeth came to give a seminar at the Hirsch Academy. Must have been about 2016, maybe.
Okay. About 10 years ago then.
Yeah, 2016. And I came in and watched it. My son was not with me. Um, I watched this, there was this quiet sense of excitement there, you know, this quiet, almost like sacred
Mm,
feeling in this
yeah.
small private school called the Hirsch Academy that I had tried to get my son into twice and we didn't get in. And Elizabeth was in a room with a young man in his 20s, and he was hitting himself on the head and walking around in circles. And she was sitting there, and we had the viewers, the room that has the wall. What do you call that? Where you can see in, the viewers can see in, but they
Oh,
can see
okay.
out, like a
Okay.
two-way
Like
of
a yeah,
viewing.
like a one-way mirror sort of a thing or kind of a
Right.
yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
both of
Wow.
us, the parents and curiosity, seekers, were on the other side, kind of watching. And this young man was walking around, and he seemed very agitated. And Elizabeth was there, just calm as a cucumber. And she read something, an academic, just a chunk of an academic lesson. And then she held this letter board, this laminated alphabet board. I'd never seen that before. She held it, and the young man came over. She asked a question. He came over, and so we could see what he was pointing.
Okay. Yeah.
And he pointed the answer. I don't remember the answer.
Sure.
He pointed the answer, and then he went back to kind of walking around. And I was just in shock because I thought I had already written that young man off as,
Of course. Right.
oh, he doesn't speak. Oh, he's literally banging his head,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
He's
And
in his own world. He doesn't know what else,
yeah.
they're just in their own world.
And she continued the lesson. Each time he would come over, bam, 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 spell out either a few words or an entire sentence. It was a pretty, simple. We weren't getting like deep philosophical things here, but it was an
No.
academic lesson. But it was just, I literally was stunned. But even then, I thought, well, this isn't really going to be good for my son because he does have some spoken words. And I still was doing that thing, and you could call it denial as well, like putting, well, this is a different type, and
Mhm.
this is
Yeah.
different. And then Vance did have one lesson with Elizabeth. I have the tape. So I have the video, and he did one lesson with her. Although when I watched it, I pulled it out recently, and back then I remember thinking, he's not doing that. He was poking all over the place. He was poking, and she was using a 26 letter board. And I thought, yeah, this isn't going to work for him and he couldn't sit down. He was up, he was
Yeah.
moving,
Yeah.
he was making sounds. She kept pulling the board back up, putting it down. And even then, it didn't click. It didn't click.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean,
that's why, yeah, that's
you're
why I
not
had to write
alone.
my book because it took me so long. So I wanted this. The book that I wrote is the book that I wanted when I was back then
Yeah.
to help.
That's great though. We need those stories. I'm so excited for your book
Thanks.
because we've we've been through it, Kelley. I mean, like you said, it's this. I mean, there have been, of course, other generations of autism parents. I won't say that, but I think that we're kind of like this first wave of autism parents who've really kind of dealt with it in the non-speaking world, and especially though now with spelling to communicate, and who've experienced that. And I go back to when I first asked you about the early days, and what did you say? Ooh, like that. It's a hard journey, right? But now it's so rewarding. You're
So rewarding, but it's still hard. And that's another thing too. It's never, I think our journey's been it's been a long, I think that's one thing we do. I guess that's, you had like a dis debunking, but spelling to communicate, or these text-based spelling methods, even spelling is a misnomer, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I want to get away from that. That's been one of my missions is to kind of come up with
Well,
different terminology.
Julie Sando, her group, Autistically Inclined, they do fantastic work. And she, a lot I've noticed, uses, instead of saying spelling, she'll say text-based communication.
Yeah, I like that.
It's kind
Yeah,
of a mouthful. It's a mouthful, but it's good because, I had a friend staying with us just a couple of weeks ago. And, I was telling her she was really interested in Vance and what he's doing. So we were doing some spelling lessons. And she was like, "Oh, I can't wait to watch you spell." And she thought it was literally I was teaching him how to
how
spell.
to spell, right?
But
Which
then
I
that's
think
a whole different thing because they're like, "Well, how do they know how to spell?"
I was just going to say that is a huge problem, right? That's a communication slash branding problem is
Yeah,
that, like you said, when you talk about, oh, he learned how to spell or he learned spelling. They're like, oh, he learned how to spell words. No, they know that. They communicated. This helps them communicate. So whether it's text based or I know like Elizabeth Bonker and Ginny, and Communication for All, they like typing. They try to use typing as just kind of a generic. That's fine. I mean, I don't.
typing. Yeah,
And yeah, I like motor based. I mean, I've started using that a little bit more. I mean, I think
yeah,
anything, but just that really kind of helps define it. You had mentioned Kelley earlier too, like with someone like this is a teaching methodology too. It's communication and teaching, and I think that needs
yes,
to be emphasized more.
yes, yes, yes. And it actually at times is spelling. Like at times, I think Vance doesn't know how to spell a word, and but that is very much of a sidebar.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there are things that Stone will misspell things or whatever, and it's really funny, Kelley, because I don't know if you did this as well. And man, I blame my journalism background, my journalism degree on this. Like I would correct him initially when he was like when
Oh,
he'd have to, you know what I mean? Like not a lot, but
yeah, yeah,
it was second nature. Like no, this is how and he was generally fine with it. He said he wanted to learn, but after all, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like the key is he's communicating. Like it's all about communication. Who cares if he spells it wrong when he's talking to me?
yeah. But actually, that's good because you taught him how to spell correctly. So I don't think that's so like bad.
No, but early on, it was a little harsh. Yeah.
Early on, I couldn't even sit until I realized that my emotional regulation
Oh yeah.
affected my son. I had so much anxiety around spelling because, again, in the early days, we were taught, well, I wasn't taught anything in the early days. I just was like asking parents, how do you do this? What is this? How can
Hmm.
I do it? We would go to the first people who had like monthly meetings are Every Voice Matters. It's
Uh-huh. Yeah.
here, and it's Jess Sibley, who's a trained practitioner, and Susie Lotharius, who's an awesome autism mom. Those two would have in Atlanta a monthly meeting, and I would kind of go and try to see what this was about, pick their
Yeah.
brains type of thing. But yeah, but the early days, I had so much anxiety. I did some coaching with Jessica Sibley, fantastic practitioner, and she helped coach me. I couldn't even remember a four-letter word. I would have to write down every two letters because I had so much like anxiety about doing this. Because again, we were in the early, it was like, don't touch them, that you can't touch them, you can't move the board has to stay here, and
Yeah,
because
there's a lot that goes into it. I'm
a
so glad you
lot.
brought that up. I mean, and the regulation piece again is a huge component that we had no idea about it. I mean, of course, you kind of know that your emotions can impact your kids, in a generic sense, but we had no idea just how much our regulation impacts our kids' regulation. They are so highly sensitive to this stuff, like I said, with communication and just in general. I didn't know, and I'm an emotional person, right? And so that takes a lot for me to also make sure I'm regulated. Still not always perfect. I still have times it's, it's hard and I have to step away and calm myself down in certain situations. But I'm really glad you brought that up because again, a lot of people don't realize that.
They don't realize it. You know who's a master at it? Dana Johnson.
Oh,
Dana,
I'm sure. Yeah, Dana. Yeah.
she's a master at that. I asked her about it once because same, I'm all over the place emotionally, but she is like a rock, steady, and she doesn't let the emotions. I did some training with the Speller's Method folks, and she and Dawn Marie Gavin are just wonderful. And she said she doesn't let the emotional ups and downs. She just stays steady. And then again, guys, like give ourselves some grace. We're parents who
I was gonna say
haven't,
it's a different dynamic too, right?
right?
Yeah, it's
Right?
kind of like babysitting other kids. Like you're better with other kids sometimes than you are with your own kids.
Totally, completely. And even now, I have to say, like, we're not fully, my son and I are not fully fluent on the letterboards. So that's another thing. Like, okay, you could be like, well, you're doing
Mm.
this for 9 years, but we've also had it has not been linear. It's been and we've had, my son got sick at one point and really
Oh yeah,
tough.
that'll affect things.
He
Yeah.
dropped off from spelling with me and even practitioners. So, and then also think of it too. Think of him like if you're a 24-year-old male, do you want to be telling your mom?
Right.
Do you want to be sitting there talking to your mom about your innermost?
Right.
Maybe not. Maybe
Yeah, it depends, right? Like, I mean, some things, yes, maybe not. Like you
some
said,
things,
no.
yes, but
Yeah, but
some
no,
things,
she's still your mom. Like, I don't want.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we're still on this wonderful journey, but it's just getting better and better. The spelling, the text-based communication, the piece, and that's we're just getting better and better at that. But it's been me who had to do the training. My
yeah,
son was open with others way before he was open with me. Like
yeah.
he knew, he was, I think the first person he was open with on the letterboards was Jessica Sibley.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So that's good. So he's been open. So he's had obviously the opportunity to express himself and
Yeah.
write and all those wonderful things that come with it. I do want to talk before we run out of time. There's a couple other things, but the one thing I did want to bring up, especially because I think it's so timely, and you had brought this up, Kelley, in advance, is the whole Woody Brown and Upward Bound situation, right? The Atlantic piece
Yeah.
that was written. Full disclosure, I did not read the Atlantic piece. I'm aware of it. I'm aware of, the context, the accusations. That was enough for me. I didn't want to pay to subscribe to something. But the other piece of this, Kelley, and I'm sure you've seen this too, is of course there was the NBC Today, that showcased Woody. And a lot of the skeptics out there and others have been having come a field day showcasing the video that basically shows that he's not actually, yeah, he's not spelling what his mom was talking, when she was reading. I think it was an excerpt from the book, or no, it's actually what he was describing his experience. I take that back. But so he was typing, talking, she was reading it, but the video, and I want you to back me up on this because I've explained this to people, right? The video to me is obviously just B-roll that they took, but in the editing they mashed it together and it ended up doing a huge disservice to Woody and to the community, I believe. So there's a lot in there. I just said there's
There's a
two different
lot in
parts, right?
there.
There's the Atlantic
Yeah.
part and then there's also the NBC News part. I was wondering if you want to talk about.
There's so much in there,
Yeah.
David. Um, but basically, that is I have the Atlantic piece. I've read it. I actually have it right here.
Oh, okay.
But,
Yeah.
but Daniel Engbar, that he's a wonderful reporter in many ways, but it shows the bias that is
Hmm.
still out there. And the
Yep.
one thing that I hadn't heard anyone talk about was what we really need. And Engbar, again, he did his reporting due diligence. You know, he got a statement from Woody Brown. He talked to his professors, where he did his master's and both his undergraduate degrees. So he talked to folks. But you know, nobody talked to NBC about exactly what you just said. No one took, because the main thing is that piece of video, or I think there were two pieces where it's
two pieces, I think, right?
Two short pieces where it seems to be, when you slow it down, that he's spilling nonsense.
Yeah.
And we all know that our kids also often need to warm up when they're typing. You know, Vance will often has a hard time with stopping himself, right? And what is that called? That's called inhibition, right? Inhibition. In the Speller's method praxis model, they have this praxis model. So if you're not good at with inhibition, you can't stop. That could be like he used to elope a lot, like your nervous system, and you just run away. But it can also be on the letterboard. You know, so you know, I will pull the board away and say, let's start.
Restart. Yeah.
Restart. And so we don't know. We didn't get a statement. I would like to get a statement from NBC. I would love to contact their producers, Jenna Bush's producers, and say, can you all dig up that tape and see was that B-roll? And then again, you know how TV journalists work is they shoot a lot of stuff. So when they're shooting a television piece, they will make the camera person will do lots of
different angles, different.
There might be 3 cameras in there. I don't know how many cameras they use. There might be a dolly. They might have gotten him warming up. They might have gotten him. So NBC is the only entity that can answer that question.
Yeah, true.
Is that the tape when you edited it to the sound? And we know we still do editing where we use the B-roll, the background roll, and then the voiceover, the VO. And when you marry those, did you match that to? So we need that because the skeptics just went bananas on that one.
Yeah.
And really, there's never been a group of people who have had this type of pressure and denial of their intellect. I can't think of any other group that has defend themselves against their work. You know, when this reporter in the Atlantic piece went back and talked to the professors of Woody Brown, they were like, yeah, we made sure it was his work. He's you know, I'm not a doofus. These are like
right. Yeah.
But he implies in the piece that you know, the mom, Woody's mother and Woody are so entwined, you know, that she has a background. She has a background in writing. But then, I mean, if you're a writer, do you think your kid maybe inherited the writing?
Exactly, right.
Like, is that so weird? Like,
to your point, that's exactly it. There are so many examples of kids who inherit the same skills and gifts of their parents, and yet no one ever questions that. Like, you know, you don't see that, like you said, except in the non-speaking community where they have to prove everything. There's their basic intelligence, the fact, like you said, the bias that it would even be questioned to begin with, skeptics aside, but that serious journalists. And then oh my God, Kelley, we have so much to talk about. But you know, like I said, there's the New York, you know, then there's the whole New York Times.
Well, I was going to bring that up as well, because the Amy Lutz op-ed piece that a lot of us, and I guess most of your viewers are going to be autism people, will know what
I would think so, yeah.
But the piece in the New York Times that Amy Lutz, who I believe she's getting her PhD from the University of Pennsylvania. She's not a medical doctor. People do.
She's a professor of medical history.
Okay.
Yeah,
she's not an MD, but
she's not an MD. She's not. She's
a super smart lady, and you know, I don't want to disparage her. She has wonderful credentials. She's written a few books.
Yeah.
but it's the whole not not seeing this whole looking for controversy and not understanding how these individuals work. I mean, she mentioned in her op-ed piece, her son, he loves water parks and Sesame Street, and that's kind of an indication of where he is intellectually. And I thought, I love water parks. I
Sesame
still love
Street.
Sesame Street. If
True,
I admit
right.
it, my son still watches occasionally. We have little inside jokes about Grover, your waiter, and we'll just say Grover, your waiter, and we'll both start laughing. So we love
Oh, I love
Sesame
that.
Street still and water parks. Actually, me, not so much, but he loves water parks. But why can't you love water parks and also love calculus? Why can't an individual enjoy both of those? And
They,
so broadening the spectrum, if she would broaden the spectrum, I did on her Facebook page, Amy Lutz's Facebook page, I invited her to come. You have to see this in person. Part of it is this is not something you watch a video on YouTube and say, oh, yeah, you can see I'm not. You have to be in the culture. You have to watch someone in person spelling. When you watch that, you see that it's them.
yeah.
You see that it's their mind. There's so many things you could bring up. Well, one of our friends uses his peripheral vision.
Yeah, right.
And so he goes like this. And his mom, at one point, I wanted to videotape him. And his mom was scared. And she's like,
Yeah.
no, no, because I don't want, these folks aren't out there. They're just trying to like,
Well, they have an agenda. They have they have a
yeah,
clear agenda. I'm
they have a
sorry.
clear
Yeah.
agenda. I mean, we could do a weekly roundup of autism news. So much has happened just since the Amy Lutz op-ed piece and the Woody Brown controversy. There was also, I mean, there's so much that happened. The ABA, there was the new findings on conflict of interest in autism research.
Yes, yeah,
That
just a
just
few,
came
right.
out
Yeah.
yesterday or a couple days ago
Yep.
for the ABA
We should
industry.
do Kelly, will you do that with me? Can
Oh
we do
yeah, like a news
autism?
roundup because
Can we
you
do
do
autism
have
news
to.
roundup? I mean, I've done a little bit of that actually. Dave and I,
Would
producer
be
Dave and I
fun.
have done a couple of, like monthly, but like just so much is happening.
So much is it's like whack-a-mole. And you're just trying to also, if hey, we're caregivers, the only way I'm doing this interview now is because I have a caregiver has my son for 4 hours
Mhm.
and he's taking him to music therapy right now
Oh,
and
awesome.
to
Yeah.
the
So this is,
park and doing some fun stuff. But you have to it's a full-time job to follow this and then the controversy and I don't know, I don't have the energy to do all of the rebuttals and the fear and the but you've done great
it's
work.
exhausting. I
It's
mean,
exhausting. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's only so much we can do, but I feel like, what I try to do is as much as I can bring information, try to, yeah, and counter that, really, especially the factually incorrect stuff as much as I can. I mean, I'm just big on that.
Yeah.
Getting back to, the Amy Letts piece, there's some things in there that just were factually wrong in terms of the assumptions that are made. And I feel this is where I'll get on my soapbox because the regard that I hold for journalism, and particularly a publication like the New York Times, that was a serious error in judgment on their part to run that without anyone checking what she had claimed in there, or getting a rebuttal for someone like, Barry Prezant, or, someone like that,
Yes. He
who
would have.
actually has credentials. She doesn't, I mean, I'm sorry, like I said, she's a smart lady. She has a non-speaking autistic son. That's it. Those are her credentials.
Actually, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
I mean, you're a smart, smart woman too, right? I mean, we all qualify, but she made some, again, very serious claims in there and leaned on data that was incomplete, basically, these studies that most scientists wouldn't take seriously and that were also extremely dated, going
From
back
the 90s.
decades, right? Again, there's no other, I can't think of any other situation where the New York Times would publish something that's based on studies, small studies that were conducted in the 90s.
In the
What
90s.
what the hell? I'm sorry, like
Right.
this is
And they
like
didn't
very
they didn't even look at the University of Virginia eye tracking study.
right.
those type of things. And that's what people, and that's the New York Times needs to learn this. The New York
Yes.
Times needs
Yes.
to learn, and that's what my book aims to do as well. We need balanced voices. I'm not like out on this limb or this limb politically. We need these balanced voices saying these individuals, this is how they learn. And this is how, in my
Yeah.
book, I don't, it doesn't even seem like my book, it's our book because I have interviews from the community. I have people like Noah Seaback, who's a non-speaker, who wrote almost an entire chapter on trauma, on how he experiences trauma.
Awesome. That's
I couldn't
great.
write that because I don't know that.
Yeah.
I'm more of, the person like the journalist who's just collecting the story. He wrote it, and he wrote that. I mean, I can't even imagine how these individuals experience trauma and nervous system dysregulation.
Over years, right? Oh, years.
Years, and he gives us a glimpse of that, and a
Yeah.
glimpse of that, and he is doing remarkable work out there. We have friends who have written a poetry book.
Oh,
Her
yeah.
mom, her mother didn't write this book, Graciela Lotharius. Her
Right. Oh, right. Yeah.
She wrote this book. The poems are short and lovely and wonderful. And, she describes how apraxia is in her body. We need to listen to them. We need to decenter ourselves.
You're so right.
So that's kind of how
And
I,
I'm still learning about apraxia and
oh,
all,
I'm
right?
still learning.
Yeah.
I am still learning every day, every day, every day. There's so much to learn.
I
My
mean,
son has taught me so much, but yeah, it's complex, as so many things with autism are, aren't they? They're really complex, multi.
it's very complex. And yeah. And like I said, in terms of what I try to do is, provide information as best as I could. And like you said, with the book, try to help parents wherever they are in their journey, especially those that maybe early on, I hope that they can learn what we didn't learn or what we didn't know that would have been so helpful early on.
So long. I mean, until Vance was 18, we really didn't know his authentic voice.
Yeah.
It slowly came out. One of the first things he did at the Connection School of Atlanta, which is one of the first, I think the only first high school in Atlanta to use text-based communication. Now, they didn't do it initially. Long story, but they did sessions like after school. You could have a session because
Okay.
because the teachers all were not trained initially. Let's just say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but they were exposed to it and they were thinking that way. They were presuming competence. They were using audiobooks of high cognitive work. They were teaching calculus. They were teaching
That's great.
science, things that my son would have never gotten in a special ed class.
No.
Right? And then we did switch to private school eventually because public school was just foobar. Like it was not working
Right.
for us at all. For
Right.
him, really, he was just regulated. But one of the first things he ever wrote was they had him do a 6-word memoir. And so again, the teachers, if they weren't spelling to communicate yet, they would put like several hundred words on a table, just a mass of words, single, and the child would pick out 6 words,
Yeah. I love it.
describe themselves, right? It's easy, but it's presuming competence. You're presuming that this person can find 6 words in this whole mass of words and I have it here, but he picked out unique words, unknown inside, interesting music. And they did a little
Oh,
picture,
I love that.
but unknown inside.
Yeah. Right.
It was unknown inside and still is in many ways. It's a
Sure.
slow reveal. That's what
Happy,
Speaking of which,
happy,
happy.
happy.
Yeah. Okay.
Joe,
Stone. Yeah. He just woke up. He took a morning nap. He got up extra early today, so I'm glad that he got some extra sleep. So
did he actually just say happy?
yeah.
Stone, it's so good to hear your voice.
Yeah, that was
That would
Stone.
probably be part of your 6-word memoir. Stone would be happy.
Happy for
That would be one
sure.
of your,
He spreads happiness.
yeah.
Okay, well, we've got it. Okay, let's do a couple of quick segments. Gosh, like I
Okay.
said, there's so much.
I know, right?
Kelly,
There's,
I might have, I always talk about, I want to do a part two because there's so many things I want to get into, including, Vance's ER visit. Like, there's just a lot more.
oh yeah, we didn't even, I had like all these
There's,
notes.
I know we
Yeah.
have so much more to talk about. So we're going to do a
Okay.
part two. And I do want to talk to you about maybe doing some type of autism news type of a,
Wouldn't that be cool?
yeah, I think doing something like that would
And
be
I'm
really
already
cool.
doing it anyway in my, you know what I mean? Like and that's partly too, caregiving. It's a great job because I get up in the morning and write so I can do my writing when Vance is asleep. And then caregiving, a lot of times it's going to the park
Yeah.
and I can read up on autism news while
While you're hanging out and yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we'll talk about that.
okay.
But all right, so let's start off with our tip of the week.
Hey parents, gather around, it's time to speak. We're here with your tip of the week. Strategies and wisdom just for you. Autism parents, we know what you go through.
All right, it's time for our autism tip of the week. And I have a feeling, Kelly, you probably could bring like 10 tips of the week based on your experience and your knowledge here. But what do you have for us?
Well, I would say, I guess it would have to be slow down, parents,
Mm,
and be present to your loved ones. I put the phone away. I learned so much just by slowing down. My natural tendency is to kind of move quickly and do a lot of things. But my son has really taught me how to just be present. And you really you see the magic in what these individuals bring. We have a joke, Vance will say, uh, we love the song, it's a song, every little thing's gonna be all right.
oh
But
yeah, right.
so he'll just say, "Hey, Stone."
Yeah,
He'll
he
just
likes to
look at
pop.
me and say, "Three little birds." And that's for three little birds outside of
Yeah.
my doorstep. So he looked at me yesterday when I was feeling kind of cranky, and he just looked at me and said, "Three little birds."
Oh,
And I just started laughing and just enjoy these beautiful guys and gals.
isn't that, one of the many amazing things, right? Is the level we talked about how in tune they are, but also the level of care. Like they care about us and how we're feeling. I think more than they care about their own feelings, honestly, in terms of Stone is always, I mean, for years, that was one of the few things that he could say. Are you okay? Are you okay? Are we okay? Daddy okay? Sort of thing, right? And that was just so important, and that still continues. Like he can tell when I'm stressed. I mean, he'll type it out. You seem really stressed today, Dad. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I am. You're right. Okay, I'll chill out. It's a good reminder. God
Yeah,
bless him.
yeah, super compassionate, Stone.
Super compassionate. They all are though. Like every
Yeah,
non-speaker I've met that has this incredible gift. All
yes.
right, how about if we do fact or fiction, and we'll call it a wrap, and then we'll start planning for part two.
Get QuickTime ready, and here we go. This is Autism Fact or Fiction. We're breaking down what's real, what's rumor, and what might surprise you. Let's go.
All right, now we could get into it. Yeah, stereotypes, beliefs, whatever. Let's
Mm.
call it as we see it. Kelly, what do you got?
Fact or fiction? I would say stereotype that autistics are introverts or don't want to be talked to. I would say my son is very extroverted. And so talk to, and this is for folks who maybe aren't in the autism community, just say, hey, when you see a non-speaker, talk to them as if you would talk to anyone else. Uh,
Yeah, I love that.
uh,
That's so true. And it's funny because again, Stone's a twin, and he is more of an extrovert than his twin brother. He is, neurotypical and it's just really funny, right? Like from a personality standpoint, he's super outgoing. He loves to run through Costco yelling happy, happy to people and, or bye bye. That's his other thing now. He'll just say bye bye to people and they're like, oh, okay, goodbye. He loves the engagement.
Hmm.
Yeah. Where, like you said, a lot of people are more like, don't talk to me. Just let me, I don't want people. He's the opposite.
Yeah. Just reach out. Just say something
Yeah.
to them.
Say something.
Acknowledge
Yeah.
them in an age appropriate way.
Yeah, exactly. Great tip. Well, all right, Kelley, we're going to wrap it up for here, but I want to thank you. Like I said, we're going to plan part 2. There's, like I said, a lot of stuff we didn't get to that I think will be really interesting and compelling and relevant for our audience. But and before we forget, though, on this episode, what's the book title and when do you think it'll be out?
Well, I do have a working title, but I haven't sold it yet. So
Okay.
I have a book proposal written and I'm sending it out to agents, and hopefully within the next couple of months I will know
Okay.
if that title is accepted. I don't want to say the name.
Okay, well, we'll wait. Okay, well, we'll wait till you have more to report on the book, or how about that? When we know it's publishing and
Not
when it'll be
revealing the title yet, but
Okay,
and hopefully
okay.
it will be published in 2027. I'm
Okay.
hoping for next year. Yes,
Great.
publishing is very slow. I'm learning.
I've learned that as well. Yeah, Stone and I are in the process of writing our book. I think I mentioned to you, and yeah, it's a great exercise. But anyway, so Kelley, thanks again. Listeners, viewers, thank you for joining us. As always, as I said before, please reach out if you have topic ideas. Tell us what you think about doing like some type of autism news roundup. I would love your thoughts there. You can reach me at david.coffer@hey.com. And also you check out my website, davidcoffer.com. Leave us a review. Let us know what you think. Thanks again, Kelley. And thank you, listeners.